Welcome back, learner. If you open social media today, you probably saw, like, someone yelling at you from an ice bath at 5
Oh,
a.m.
yeah, definitely.
Right. And they were almost certainly telling you to wake up earlier, to hustle harder, or, optimize your working routine so you can somehow conquer the world.
Yep.
We live under this constant, heavy expectation of relentless, exhausting improvement.
We really do. I mean, it functions almost like a modern religion at this point.
That is so true.
The underlying promise of all those life hacks and success seminars is that your life is entirely malleable. The assumption is that if you just apply enough force, enough willpower, and, the right morning routine, you can shape yourself into anything at all. A
Right.
CEO, a millionaire, a master of your own universe.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because as a listener, someone who is naturally curious and always seeking to be well-informed, you are bombarded by this hustle culture every single day. And those 5-step plans to financial freedom, they feel empowering at first glance. But our mission today is to take a deep dive into a text that flips that entire paradigm upside down.
Completely upside down.
We are looking at a 2018 philosophical essay by an author named Su Feng, specifically an excerpt titled "Pushing People to Forge Ahead is Doing the Devil's Trick."
What a title!
I know, right? And it's part of a larger framework he calls the cosmic script and the illusion of success. We're going to explore what happens when we view the push for success not as empowering, but as a literal devil's trick designed to destroy us.
Yeah, and to understand why the author views ambition as destructive, we first have to understand his absolute unyielding stance on determinism.
Okay.
The text introduces this concept of the cosmic script. So
Yeah.
according to Su Feng's philosophy, the universe operates on a fixed blueprint.
A fixed blueprint.
Right. Literally everything about a person's life trajectory is a predetermined number. It is locked in long before you ever attend a motivational seminar.
Let's test the boundaries of that, because people often use the word destiny as like a loose metaphor. How literal is this script?
Oh, it is entirely literal. The text states that the blessings you will enjoy, the sins you will commit, the specific diseases you will contract, and exactly when and how you will die.
Wait, diseases and how you die.
Yes, all already determined in the process of life. Whether you are meant to be a singer, a politician, a scientist, a beggar, a thief, or a billionaire, it is already written.
Wow.
The author explicitly argues that you cannot just be whoever you want to be. The trajectory of who you fall in love with, and conversely, who you encounter and torture, is fixed. Even spiritual destinations, like who becomes a Buddha or who falls to hell, have long been decided.
Oh, wait, isn't there a massive danger in this philosophy?
How so?
Well, if we tell people they are just, mice or beggars by design, are we validating complacency? Or worse, systemic inequality? Like, how does the author reconcile the cosmic script with people who are trapped in terrible, oppressive situations?
That is a crucial tension to highlight. But the author isn't writing a sociology paper on wealth distribution, right? He is writing a metaphysical observation on internal alignment.
Okay, I follow.
He is arguing that profound suffering comes not just from your external circumstance, but from the agonizing friction of believing you are supposed to be something else.
No.
If you look at classical philosophies, there is a strong parallel here to the Stoic concept of amor fati, loving one's fate. It is the idea that peace comes from embracing your exact role in the present ecosystem, rather than being mentally tortured by the gap between who you are and who society says you should be.
That makes the nature metaphors he uses in the text much clearer. He's talking about biological and spiritual reality versus artificial expectations.
Precisely. The author writes that if you take a Chinese cabbage and you fertilize it, water it, and maintain it meticulously,
It gets bigger.
exactly, it will absolutely grow very plump and fat, but in no case will that cabbage ever become lettuce. You can feed a sheep extra grass and premium grain, and it will grow quite fat, but it will never ever become a cow.
So you can have the most optimized, highly productive cabbage in the world, but if society values lettuce, that cabbage is going to feel like a failure its entire life.
Yes, and that is the psychological torment the text is pointing to. The author notes that you do not need to bother stretching a giraffe's neck. It grows long naturally.
Obviously.
And you do not need to hold seminars to teach lions how to catch zebras. And you do not need to teach mice how to dig holes. They are simply born to do it. Nature operates on ease and instinct, not resistance.
Let me apply this to a modern scenario just to see if I'm tracking.
Go for it.
Say I decide to take like an intense late-night coding boot camp
Okay.
because I want to completely change careers and become a software engineer. According to this text, is that just me stubbornly trying to turn my cabbage into lettuce?
Well, it depends entirely on the underlying mechanism of your desire.
What do you mean?
If you are naturally drawn to coding, if solving those logic puzzles flows from you effortlessly and you lose track of time doing it,
Then I'm following the script.
exactly, you are simply a mouse digging a hole. But if you are forcing yourself through that boot camp against every natural inclination of your brain, feeling miserable every night,
Purely because a podcast told me that tech is where the success and the money are.
right, then yes, you are a sheep trying to eat enough grain to magically transform into a cow. You are fighting the cosmic script, creating massive cognitive dissonance in your own mind.
So if the universe has this ironclad script, what happens to the human psyche when a culture relentlessly demands we rewrite it? Because the text argues that fighting the script doesn't just result in a failed career change, it results in absolute tragedy.
It does. And this brings us to the core provocation of the essay's title. The author argues that teaching people how to become successful, grooming them to be corporate officials, or instigating them to glorify their ancestors is like teaching hens to crow or asking bulls to produce milk.
It's a biological absurdity.
Exactly. But he takes the comparison to a much darker place. He compares this societal pressure to compelling a woman into prostitution.
Wow. That is an incredibly heavy, jarring comparison.
It is.
But the implication there is that hustle culture is a violent violation of someone's true nature, purely for the sake of an external transactional reward. It frames ambition not as growth, but as a form of self-betrayal.
And the author believes that self-betrayal is lethal. He translates the hidden underlying message of all motivational advice into something horrifying.
What does he say it means?
When society says, hustle harder, the text claims the actual meaning is, go to your death, work hard to die, look, the grave is not far away, run to it quickly.
That is chilling.
Because the exhaustion, the stress, the constant deferral of happiness, it physically and mentally breaks people down.
And the author backs up this theory with a very grim, concrete statistic, right? We are not just talking about abstract philosophical burnout here. We are talking about literal survival.
Yes. The text cites a report from Apple Daily, which noted that over a mere 5-year span, more than 260 officials and corporate executives ended their own lives.
Wait, 260 in just 5 years.
Yes. And the text lists the tragic, violent ways this happened. Shooting, drowning, jumping off buildings, lying on rails.
The crucial detail there is the demographic. These were not people who had failed by society's metrics.
No, none at all.
These were the 260 people who had won the game. They were the successful ones. They had the executive titles, the wealth, the prestige.
And yet they experienced such profound psychological agony that they took their own lives. The text poses a haunting question. If they were allowed to choose their path again, would they still work so hard to achieve that level of success?
I highly doubt it.
Right. The author uses this tragedy to argue that all their past hard work, all their diligent striving, was actually just them marching toward their own demise.
So, what does this all mean? It completely shatters the baseline assumption of modern economics. We are taught to equate high ranks and massive bank accounts with ultimate freedom.
The standard narrative.
The logic is, if you have the money, you have the options, and therefore you have peace. But this text argues the exact opposite. It explicitly says, wrong. The more you possess, the more troubles and pains you will have.
Because maintaining that level of unnatural success requires constant, agonizing friction. You are constantly defending your territory, managing complex liabilities, and living in fear of losing what you sacrificed your inherent nature to gain.
So the boardroom and the mansion, in this view, are essentially high-end prisons.
Precisely.
If the boardroom is literally killing people, the natural question becomes, where does this author think we actually belong? Because it can't just be a void. If he rejects the penthouse, he must have observed an alternative state of being where human beings actually thrive.
He finds that alternative by asking brilliant, contrasting questions to challenge our baseline assumptions about joy.
What?
The text asks, who is happier, a barefoot person or someone wearing high-class leather shoes? Who has more joy, a bare-bottomed child playing in the mud or a child dressed in fashionable clothes practicing intensely to play the piano on a stage?
It is the contrast between raw, unforced presence and highly manicured, stressful performance. The child in the mud is fully immersed in the current moment,
Yes.
while the child on the stage is terrified of making a mistake that will ruin a future outcome. And the author didn't just hypothesize these barefoot scenarios, did he? He traveled and observed these mechanisms of joy in action.
He did. He draws heavily on his personal observations. The text recounts his time living in Binka, which he describes as a very backward area of Zimbabwe.
What did he see there?
He observes a scene at night, under the moonlight. There are dozens of simple thatched huts, a bonfire is burning, young people are beating drums, and children, most of them barefoot, are jumping and laughing around the fire, while a few thin dogs run around barking.
The sensory details there are so important. Thin dogs, thatched huts, barefoot kids. There is zero material wealth in that scene.
None.
There is no 5-year plan, no optimization, no KPIs to hit by the end of the quarter.
And the author explicitly states, "At that moment, I understood what happiness meant. The joy was generated entirely by the lack of friction."
Oh.
He contrasts this with another observation from his time living with a primitive tribe in the Pacific island nation of Vanuatu.
How did that tribe operate?
During the day, people would just sit or lie down chatting in shabby houses with air leaks on all sides, or they would sit in the shade of the outdoor courtyard drinking tea.
Just drinking tea.
Yeah. The text notes that they live like this for more than half the year, just existing without producing anything of massive economic value. And the author challenges the reader who can say that they are not happy.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Hearing about Vanuatu immediately brings to mind the fable the author includes in the text. I think anyone listening who has ever felt the crush of corporate burnout will feel the weight of this story.
Oh, absolutely.
It is the classic tale of the wealthy vacationer and the fisherman.
It is a fable that perfectly encapsulates the friction between the two mindsets. A wealthy person goes to a seaside resort to relax, and he sees a local fisherman lying on the bow of his boat, just, soaking up the sun, having only caught a few fish that day.
The rich man, completely conditioned by the hustle, looked at the fisherman and sees a terrible inefficiency. He sees a wasted resource.
Right.
So he decides to graciously bestow his business wisdom upon the poor guy.
He maps out a whole corporate strategy. He tells the fisherman he needs to hurry up, catch more fish, and sell more fish. The logic is that the surplus capital will allow him to form a fishing fleet, catch even more, set up a processing factory, and in a few years he will be a wealthy, successful magnate.
And the fisherman asks the absolute best, most dismantling question. He says, "What would I do if I become wealthy?"
The rich man replies, "When you have money, you can come to the beach to enjoy your vacation, like me."
And the punchline.
To which the fisherman simply points out reality and replies, "What do you think I'm doing now?"
That interaction is so profoundly revealing about how we defer our own lives. Think about the mechanics of what the rich man is suggesting.
It's wild.
He is telling the fisherman to take on decades of stress, risk his health, manage hundreds of employees, and take on massive debt just to eventually buy a ticket back to the exact same mental beach he is already sitting on.
Exactly.
Are we spending our whole lives furiously climbing a ladder just to earn the right to relax, when relaxing was free the entire time?
That is the illusion the text is trying to break. The author asks rhetorically, why do you want to forge ahead? Why do you want to be diligent? Is it not good enough to just live in compliance with nature?
It makes a lot of sense.
He maps out a natural human lifespan as a series of simple, unforced stages. Playing in the mud in childhood, going to school, working and falling in love in your prime, drinking tea when you are old, and watching flowers bloom and fade in your twilight years.
Sounds peaceful.
The text begs the question, is this not a perfectly good life? Why do we feel the need to conquer the world when simply living in it is enough?
I hear that. And part of me feels a massive sense of relief. But as we process all of this, there is a glaring, massive contradiction staring us right in the face that we have to address.
You are talking about the sheer amount of effort it took for the author to actually write this philosophy.
Yes, think about it. If the author truly believes that striving is the devil's trick, and that we should just sit in the shade and drink tea like the people in Vanuatu, why did he put so much intense effort into researching this?
It's a great question.
He formulated this complex philosophy and wrote this incredibly detailed essay. Is he not forging ahead by trying to convince all of us to stop forging ahead?
It is a brilliant catch, and it is a crucial tension in the source text. But the author actually addresses his own origin story to explain this exact paradox.
Oh, he does.
Yeah, it turns out his contrarian perspective was forged in a very painful, very literal failure of the success paradigm he once believed in.
Let me guess. He followed the traditional hustle playbook perfectly, and it completely backfired on him.
In the worst way possible. 20 years prior to writing this essay, Xu read Napoleon Hill's famous book, The Complete Book of Success.
Wow. That is essentially the original, ultimate blueprint of modern hustle culture. It is the grandfather of every 5 a.m. ice bath post.
It really is. The text says that after reading it, he became highly ambitious. He wanted to earn more money. He wanted to be outstanding.
And what happened?
As a direct result of that forced ambition, because he stepped out of his natural script to chase an external reward, he was deceived. He was defrauded out of more than 400,000 RMB.
Oh my gosh, 400,000. That is a devastating financial loss.
Absolutely devastating.
The irony is incredibly dark. The book about success led him directly to financial ruin.
And the trauma of that event shattered his entire worldview. From that moment on, the text states he hated the concept of success. He spent the next 20 years studying the mechanisms of ambition, which ultimately led to his firm conclusion that pushing people to forge ahead is a devil's trick.
Wait, 20 years of study is a massive amount of work.
Yeah.
That requires relentless discipline. And he anticipates people calling him out on this contradiction, doesn't he?
He does. The author directly poses the hypothetical question to himself in the text. He asks, you, Shofeng, write articles day and night to create Lifechanyuan and Chanyuan homes. Are you not working hard?
Wait, really quickly, what are Lifechanyuan and Chanyuan homes?
Good catch. Lifechanyuan is essentially the spiritual community and ideological framework founded by Sufeng, and Chanyuan homes refer to the physical or conceptual branches of that community. He spent decades tirelessly building this entire philosophy and organization.
So he is working day and night building an organization. How does he defend that against his own rule of not striving?
His answer completely resolves the paradox. He says, I love it. No one urges me to do it. I would like to be like this. The critical difference is the origin of the motivation. He is not writing these articles because a seminar told him it would make him rich or because he wants to impress the board of directors. He is doing it because it is an unavoidable expression of his nature.
He is the mouse digging the hole.
Yeah.
The effort isn't a friction, it's an instinct.
You've hit on the exact mechanism. The text emphasizes that people will naturally follow their life paths without any external instigation.
Right.
If someone genuinely loves to learn, you don't need to urge them with threats of failure. If someone is meant to be a boss, they will naturally be uneasy as an employee and take the lead. If someone wants to be a saint, they will naturally seek out the philosophy of saints. You couldn't stop them if you tried, because it is written in their cosmic script.
He has a very low tolerance for anyone who tries to intervene in that natural biological process, doesn't he?
He is fiercely protective of it. He writes that if someone comes and urges him to work hard or to forge ahead, he will tell them, go to hell, you are better.
I love that.
And then he delivers one final brilliant metaphor to shut down the argument. He asks, can a hen lay eggs if she has none in her belly? If she has eggs in her belly, can she not lay them?
That is such a clarifying image. So the source isn't actually advocating for pure laziness or apathy or sitting on a couch doing nothing if you're bursting with ideas.
Not at all.
It is saying you should only exert effort if it is undeniably in your nature. If you're a hen with an egg, you're going to lay it. The true danger, the actual devil's trick, is when we exhaust ourselves trying to lay eggs that society artificially planted in our heads rather than the ones that naturally exist in our biology.
That is a perfect synthesis of his philosophy. The modern push to constantly optimize, to achieve, to be publicly outstanding is framed by this text as a dangerous illusion. It pulls us away from the simple, natural joys of life. It makes us feel fundamentally inadequate for simply existing. The cosmic script is an invitation to lay down our weapons and stop fighting our inherent nature.
Which should be incredibly validating for you, the listener, because your natural curiosity, your desire to take deep dives into complex text and untangle these philosophies, that is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
It is your egg to lay, as long as you were doing it for the joy of the bonfire and the moonlight, and not because some productivity guru told you that consuming informative content will increase your market value by 10%.
It is about stripping away the external pressure and observing what naturally remains when the noise stops.
Exactly. We started this deep dive thinking about that jarring 5 a.m. alarm clock, the ice bath, and the suffocating pressure to constantly be more, do more, and achieve more.
We did.
So I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day, a sort of mental experiment to test your own cosmic script.
Find out what kind of animal you actually are.
If every single ounce of societal pressure to succeed vanished completely tomorrow morning, if no one on earth cared about your job title, the size of your bank account, or how optimized your morning routine was, what is the very first thing your natural script would compel you to do? Would you still be exhausting yourself trying to build an empire, or would you find yourself perfectly content, just sitting on the bow of a boat enjoying the sun?